Hey, welcome to another episode of
Sipping and Tripping. How y'all doing?
How you doing?
How's life?
Well, today we are here with Bishop Keith McQueen,
Hey.
Hello.
and we are about to have some conversations today.
I'm excited.
Yes. So, Bishop Keith, please tell us about yourself and your organization and everything. First and foremost, we got to get to know you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm open to that. Well, I am Bishop Keith McQueen, the founder of PowerHouse Church, and just so excited to, first of all, be here with you all. We met once before. You guys came before we moved into this building. We were in Boys Town.
Okay.
In the neighborhood.
Yeah, he said that when we pulled up. He's like, I don't know if this right.
This is a little further.
All I did was put in the address that you gave to me. Now I know what to tell you.
Where he taking us?
Exactly.
Yeah. But yes, I am the founding bishop of PowerHouse Global Network. We are one church in 6 locations.
Okay.
We are based out of Indianapolis.
Okay.
We started in Indianapolis in May 2012.
Okay.
We expanded to Chicago July 2017.
Oh, wow.
I was there that day.
And yes, you were. And then we expanded to Boston, Massachusetts last year. This year we expanded to LA, Greensboro, and Jacksonville, Florida.
How you know LA? I missed that one. I normally catch everything. I'd be looking. I'd be like, "Where they at now?" It's popping up like popcorn.
We just all over the place. Like, where's Waldo, right?
So like, I had found you because literally, I was on Instagram being nosy, as one does, and I came across the post for something totally different. And so it was like, go to Larry Reed's page. So I'm on his page. I'm like, who is this person with all this gossip? And so I'm listening, and then that's how, like, the next day, I think he was talking about you. Then you came on there, and I was like, who is he? Where's his church at? It was an opening day. The next day, I'm like, I'm going. I called my cousin. I'm like, you want to go to church with me? We ain't been to church in a while. We got to go to church. He was like, yeah. And it was just so crazy how it happened, because it was like out of nowhere. I was like, this is what I've been searching for.
Wow.
It was like just like that. I was trying to get some tea or something else. Never even got the tea I was looking for. Never got it. Nothing. I was just like, wow, in Chicago. And I was looking. I was like, wait, tomorrow?
So soon.
What am I going
It
with?
was meant to be.
Wow.
Now, what initially started you guys in Indianapolis? Like, what was the initial kind of jump off?
So, I'll make that brief because it's very complicated.
Okay. As most good stories tend to be.
As most good stories tend to be. After a series of supernatural events, I was really led to relocate from Atlanta to Indianapolis. So I was living in Atlanta. I was in the career I wanted to be in. I was doing what I wanted to do, driving the car I wanted to drive, living in the house I wanted to live in. And I heard the Lord tell me to relocate to the Midwest. I received, as a matter of fact, when I first received that notion in my spirit, I didn't want to receive it because I just didn't want to be where it snowed.
You know,
I don't understand.
I ask people that all the time. They're like, "Oh, I moved here from Florida," and I go, "Why? Like, why?"
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can explain it is a higher calling.
Yeah, it has to
because
be a higher
that'd be the
calling.
only thing that would make me move from somewhere warm to here. That's it.
Absolutely, it was literally a divine call. I was very comfortable in my life, and I received another prophecy from someone who didn't know me at the time, and he pointed me out after I got done preaching and said, the Lord said, you're leaving the Southeast and you're going to the Midwest, and you must be obedient to this. So it was about February 2012, January 2012, there was a pastor who asked if I would come assist his ministry in Indianapolis. Well, when I got there, we started to assist him just to find out. He said, I'm leaving. I'm out of here.
Been training my replacements.
Well, I thought, does he want me to be a replacement? But come to find out, the church was failing. It was just not doing well. They probably had like 4 members.
Okay. So he was jumping ship.
Yes.
Wow.
This was the membership. It was probably 3 people was in the church.
Okay.
And so
He was probably going south.
included me and him. And so finally I said, God, I just literally relocated my life here. And the Lord spoke to me and said, I told you to start a ministry. And so I met with a group of people, and these individuals were not from Indianapolis. They were all from surrounding cities who said the Lord had sent them into the city at that time.
Okay.
And so it was about 6 of us, and we officially launched PowerHouse Church, May 27, 2012, in a classroom in a Lutheran church.
Okay.
So that's where we started, and the church just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, and we wanted to create a space in particular that was for all people.
Okay.
A space where LGBTQ plus people could worship God and feel accepted.
Right.
Yes.
And we were doing this in red state Indiana, and there were many people that said that's not going to work.
Right.
First of all, you're a black man, okay, and you're a black gay man, and
2 strikes.
there's 2 strikes, okay. So this is not going to work here. And now you talking about you're a black gay preacher,
Right.
You done. You know, you out. You out before you started. This will never happen. This will never work. You need to go back home. Ask if they will hire you back and figure your life out.
Okay.
And but the Lord told me to do it, and lo and behold, here we are, 1 church in 6 cities.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is amazing. Look at that. Now, how does kind of like the logistics of that work? Are you guys still kind of over the church as a whole, and then you kind of piece out the work regionally?
So that's a very good question. So what we did is I function as the global senior pastor of all locations. However, each location besides Chicago and Indianapolis has a campus pastor.
Okay.
So I function as the bishop for PowerHouse Global Network. Now it's divided into 3 main groups.
Okay.
We have PowerHouse Church, which are our campuses, 6 campuses. Then we have network churches, so individuals that are affirming and inclusive, but they want covering and accountability and a community.
Right.
So I cover their churches, even though their church is not a PowerHouse church.
Gotcha.
It is a part of our network.
Okay.
And then we have a 3rd group of CEOs. We call it PCEO. Those that have organizations, those that have 501c3s, those that have all kinds of dynamics within the marketplace. Because the Lord spoke to me and said, there are many people who will not pastor in the traditional wineskin of a church,
Right.
but they are pastors in business. They are mantled for the marketplace.
Right.
And so we wanted to provide covering for CEOs that are affirming, but they also have spiritual values, and they want to be connected to a community with spiritual values.
So that would be something like people that are running nonprofits that help out in the area and all that stuff. That's good.
And even some for-profits.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that, for example, I just got back from Miami a couple of days ago, and we just brought in 2 new network churches into our fellowship, and then 1 organization that has both a non-for-profit and a for-profit, because I believe, and I'm sure many others believe, it's God's will for us to bring finances into our community.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to go out into the marketplace. Really, the call of the church was to go, not just to assemble.
Right.
And go into the world and gather resources so that we can push them into those that come and those that we serve, so they can live a better quality life.
That makes sense. That
It
makes
does.
a lot of sense. You get a lot of churches in the areas that they want to bring the word part of it. You have to forgive me. I'm not a church person.
So I'm the church person.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So we come from like 2 different backgrounds, so it's crazy.
You'll get a lot of churches that they want to come in and they say, well, we want to help the people in the area and we want to bring the word, and then it stops at the church doors. You know what I mean? And I've always kind of seen that aspect of some churches as, well, if you think that you not crossing this threshold into the real world is not going to help, then I don't know how much help you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
It's
very
very
true.
good.
So I would like to say it took me over 21 plus years. See, I did that. Over 21 plus years to even understand what a affirming church was.
Right.
Because when I was coming up, I didn't know what that was. I just knew you go to church every day, choir practice, Bible study, all that stuff, and you keep going.
Right.
And when the pastor talk about you, you just nod down, and like he ain't talking about you, and then you end up on TV and everybody talking about you.
Right.
Anyway. But I didn't know what affirming church was, so when I had literally, it was last year when you guys had opened up, that's when I started researching, and then I found you guys because I was like looking up. I was like, okay, affirming churches, like a black church, do they shout? I'm on Google, I'm looking for it. And like I said, it just kind of organically happened and came, and so that's why I picked my cousin up, because I'm like, you need to come. And literally, he tells me like mid-service, he goes, "I think I want to join." Going up there. I was like, "Go there." He was, but like I told him, I was like, we grew up in the same church our whole lives, and when we go back to visit that church, it felt empty.
Right.
And when I went to visit you guys like that one day, well, I came twice. You were there the second time I came, but when I came, I was like, this feels like home.
Wow.
Like I didn't feel like a guest. And I've been to many churches over the years. You go in, you feel like a guest. And I came in, I saw a couple faces that that I knew, and I was like, this feels really comfortable.
Wow.
And like I had to go tell everybody. I'm like, oh my God, y'all want to come to church with me? Everybody told me now.
Right.
Everybody told me now.
I was gonna make it at some point. I just
liquor on the head.
that really was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And
that
most
was earlier this year or just late last year, right?
This year.
Yeah.
I was trying to get. I've been trying to get it back.
most people haven't been to, or like you hadn't heard of an affirming church.
No, I didn't.
So when they hear church, it's like, especially in our community, it's like,
Well, the first thing you hear, like people, they say, "Oh, it's a gay church."
Right.
It's a gay church, and I was like, well, is it? So I'm telling my mom, I was like, well, I think I'm gonna go to the gay church, girl. She was like, it's not a gay church. I was like, well, I know that. I said, but that's what they said on the internet, girl. I don't know how. But I was like, then that's when I had to educate myself. It's an affirming church,
Right.
which affirming different walks, different beliefs,
Right.
and literally, I was like, that was the best thing for me because I was in a point where I was like, am I going to go back to church? Do I want to? I don't feel at home where I used to be at. I don't want to go nowhere else. And I came to visit you guys. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing. And I'm out there trying to tell everybody to come with me. I'm like, afterwards we can go to the bar. Come on, you go to the bar.
Right.
Let's go down the street. It's okay. Just
Right.
come on.
Right.
You might not want to go to the bar afterwards.
Right.
My cousin was like, I don't want to. I want to get something to eat and go home. I said, yes.
Now being an affirming church, what would you say are like the differences between your style of worship versus some of the other black churches, Lutheran or Baptist or something like that?
There probably are no differences
Okay.
between our style of worship. Now, our affirming church is slightly different in that we are probably strongly prophetic. Our
Okay.
church is very strongly prophetic. You have a lot of people from the leaders to the ushers that are very intuitive.
Okay.
So it is very familial, the environment, which is what you shared with me. Is what people often say when they come is like, I don't feel like a visitor.
No.
I feel like I've been coming here for years,
Right.
even though this is my first time in the room. So I think that is slightly different. But as far as the style of worship, it's probably not different. You're going to get good music. You're going to get preaching. You're going to get healing. You shout. You're going to run,
That was my thing. I said, wait, they got to shout.
Right.
Oh,
we shout.
I was like, I said, I hope they shout because I asked a friend years ago. She said, oh, you should come to church with me. I said, she said, mass with me. I said, y'all shout? She goes, no, they'll probably kick you out. I said, I ain't going with you.
I'll pass.
I said, I'll pass. I said, what y'all do? She goes, we just do like this. I said, oh, no, I can't do that. I said, I got to see. No, I'm good. I never went with her. Oh.
It happens.
It really is. The major difference between our church and maybe, and I use this carefully, mainstream churches would be honesty.
Okay.
It's just honesty. It's when you go to a lot of the other churches, it's this dishonest culture. Men who are same gender loving are being pressured to get married and have kids. Women, which they probably, a lot of the women don't get as critiqued as often just because you may have some that aren't stereotypically what we would call obviously homosexual.
Right.
But many of them are in same gender loving relationships in churches in this city.
Yeah.
And but they're not honest about it. They
Right.
say, this is my roommate. We're in a 1-bedroom apartment
Right.
for 30 years.
Exactly.
This is my roommate.
This is how we save money on rent.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
just one bed,
Right.
save money there.
Right.
My sister in the Lord.
I've literally experienced that in church. Like, when you're coming up in church, you get friends from different churches, and all the gay people, they all find each other. We all found each other at one point in life, but when you're in church, it's like you're different people. Ain't nobody looking at each other, ain't nobody eyeing, everybody doing like this. As soon as we get out of church, we all kikiing and cackling.
You can't be yourself.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah.
No, you really couldn't. And then when you try to break away from that mode, You know, then you get isolated out. You know, you out the in group, out the in church group. Yeah, I got kicked out years ago. I got kicked out years ago. Thank you, Jerry Springer.
Now, what are some of the programs like? What's like a weekly schedule for the church? Like, what do you guys normally do?
So there is, I can give you a BC before COVID weekly schedule, and then a current weekly schedule. So before COVID, and we still do a lot of programs. We've just moved them online. We've had to be creative.
Right.
You have, of course, Sunday morning. Now that differs for me. I did Sunday morning in Indianapolis, and then we came here to Chicago and had our Sunday afternoon service.
Okay.
And then after that, you have rehearsals throughout the week. We have various classes that we offer through we call it PhD, PowerHouse University. So we have classes that train you in your gifts, in your purpose, in your calling, classes that help you to build your finances, to build your credit. That's one thing my husband does. My husband is a finance consultant, an advisor, and an accountant by trade, but he helps people to gather their resources so that their vision can become a reality.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes people have great visions and ideas, but because of things that they were not taught growing up concerning financial management, they don't effectively see those visions come to pass.
Yeah.
So we offer that. Another thing we offer here, we have our youth engage ministry, Ignite Youth, our Ignite Youth, and we do training for them. We train them in spiritual warfare, in prophetic, in dance, in painting, etc. Like anything, any gift that you have, there is an aspect of training that we offer here. So it's a huge piece of our culture. We have annual gatherings that we do of all of our churches coming together. As a matter of fact, New Year's Eve is one.
Oh yeah.
We'll be gathered in Indianapolis at our headquarters.
Okay.
We do our annual Habitation Conference, which is our main conference that we do in June. And we have many gospel artists that come out that we bring out this year. We had Leandra Johnson, and we had so many, Tiffany Boone, Lillian Lloyd, just so many that came out, Marika Chisholm, and supported us, pushed. We have our Exousia conference that we do here in Chicago. Our Exousia conference is a conference that's really about deep healing. We disciple people into healing, how to maintain healing, how to confront trauma, how to handle trauma. It's a huge piece of the culture of our ministry. So I would say that's who we are. Our worship encounters, our training opportunities, development opportunities. Our focus is really not what people think. So when a lot of people come, they don't know what to expect. So they're like, they're going to be, waving rainbow flags.
Right.
They're going to
be a pride parade.
Right. Voguing, doing an offering, put your seed in it.
Exactly.
Like, people don't know what to expect.
Right,
when they come, and then when they come in, they're like, oh my God, this is the presence of God is here. Like this is the fire of God is in this room, and you can feel it. It's very tangible. And then as they dive deeper, they discover, first of all, everyone in the room is not LGBTQ+.
Right.
We have a great deal of members that are identified as heterosexual. And they ask them, well, why are you here? And they find out, well, it's because of purpose. Yeah. This room focuses on purpose. And the unifying structure in the room that we all have in common is we were born for a reason. This room helps me discover that reason, trains, equips me, keeps me accountable and groomed in that purpose. That is the assignment of this space and every other location we have. And so when people tap into that, they realize it's deeper. Now there are classes for you to reconcile your spirituality with sexuality. Because we take people through certain biblical texts that we do and that have been used to bash homosexuals and show them, this is it in the Greek and the Hebrew. That's not what that meant. It was mistranslated. It was misinterpreted. And so there's spaces to liberate those that desire liberation in that area. But the ultimate goal for this room and every room that we lead in is to push you into your prophetic destiny. That's the point.
So I'm so glad that you said to liberate you. So I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago. He's out. He's very out. But when he gets to church, everybody knows. ain't no secret. I already told him I'll talk about him, so it's okay. So it's okay. He already told me. I told him to talk about him. But he tries to denounce himself and restrict himself now because he feels like that's what he's supposed to do. And I told him, I was like, well, when I met you, I said you was praying, you was shouting, you was doing all this stuff, but you were being yourself. You weren't being a carbon copy of yourself. And I told him, I was like, you really need to come to the church and visit with me. I said, because this was supposed to be your destiny. And I said, you missing out on it, on yourself. I said, God can't move you to the next chapter in your life if you're not walking. I said, when you accept yourself, then you will be able to go. I said, why are you? I said, I've never saw somebody come out the closet and go back in, but they don't do nothing when they're in there. They still out the closet. And this is like our literally, like we literally talk 2-3 o'clock in the morning almost every night. And the conversation comes there, and I'm just like, you're gay. You know you're gay. You identify as gay. You don't want nothing to do with a woman. But then when we start, and our conversations are that. I said, we kiki all day. I said, but then when we talk about church, then you want to, well, dude, I said, God see everything, child. He see you when you turn the lights off. So why not live in your truth? And I told him, I said, I promise you, I told him, I said, we'll talk about you on this episode. I said, because you need to set yourself free. We literally had like a 2-hour discussion about this. And he go in the Bible, he throw me his stuff, and I throw him mine. Yeah.
Now you mentioned some of the readings that you guys go through. What are some of the things, because the biggest elephant in the room, I feel like for most people, like you've said, is being homosexual and being in the church, or not even just necessarily homosexual, but the alphabet mafia. So not fitting into the gender norms or the sexuality norms, all that stuff, and also being in the church and have a relationship with God.
Right.
What are some of the things? What are some of those teachings that you guys use to kind of, like you said, reconcile that? Because anybody, especially you, growing up in the black church, that was a no-no. You couldn't do both of those things. Those could not coexist. So what do you guys use to kind of combat that?
So that's an excellent question. 3 things in particular we utilize in order to disciple people into wholeness. Number 1, we use the words of Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ didn't say a thing about homosexuality.
Right.
So we start off with bringing them back to their Savior, Jesus Christ. The second piece is we utilize certain literature, and there's one book in particular called The Children Are Free. It's by Jeff Miner, a good friend of mine, and the book really highlights in detail those particular scriptures that have been used to bash and denigrate homosexuals and the LGBTQ plus community in general, and begin to disciple them into wholeness through re-examining the text. And then the third thing that we use in particular is we have the blessed benefit of not only being LGBTQ plus, myself and my husband, but being of African American experience. And you all understand this. Being of African American experience, we already know what it is to have to reconcile our identity with the text. And I think that's which I find it incredulous for any black person to put themselves in a position to utilize a Bible that was utilized to condemn them and to condone slavery and to speak against interracial marriage.
There it is.
I could go through the text and I could abuse the scripture in order to propagate those ideas. And the danger is that many people will find liberation for themselves. But before I can get out and get free, you shut the door and leave me in. And so what we do, especially with those of African American experiences, we say, well, how dare you? And some of the writings we use are the writings of James Cone. He does several books on black liberation theology. James Cone, who started the concept of black liberation theology, found himself in a place to where he was being told by other African Americans, you need to abandon Christianity and abandon Christ because this was used to condemn and control us. And he said, well, I love Christ. He said, instead of abandoning Christ, why don't I study for myself and recondition myself through theological rigor to realize that there is room for me. There is a word in the Hebrew called Rehoboth. And Rehoboth is a declaration, the Lord has made room for me. So what we do is when people come into this room, they cry Rehoboth, make room for me. And we declare unto them, the Lord has made room for you. Just like the Lord has made room for us. You know, I told one black person, as a matter of fact, this is a recent conversation, very well-known African-American preacher. And she came to me and said, you're misleading people and you're going to take them to hell, and you and your husband are going to hell. And
Isn't that always nice to hear?
Isn't that wonderful?
Every once in a while, you need something, you up here, and then you're like, no, come back down.
Right, come on back down. She said, I'm a kingdom sniper, and I'm going to snipe you out in the Holy Ghost. That's what he told me. I said, well, listen, love. I said, let me share something with you. I said, the book of Timothy said that I suffered not a woman to teach. I said, so you can't go to that verse, but then you skip that verse that says women aren't supposed to teach. He said, well, you have to re-understand that text, and in the Greek and the Hebrew. I said, wait. I said, first of all, I believe in women preachers. I have tons of women preachers and pastors that are ordained. However, my issue with you is that you skipped over the text that condemned you, and then jumped onto the text that you utilized to try to condemn me, and you re-explained that text. When I do it, was demonic.
Right.
So you're comfortable with making room for yourself, but you shut the door and locked me in, so I couldn't get out. And that's my issue. So we utilize those three methods. Number one, through Black liberation theology, how it ties into queer liberation theology.
Right.
We also utilize certain writings that re-explain the text in more depth. And then, of course, we use the words of Jesus Christ, the love of Jesus Christ, when you come into this room. Because the truth is that most of us, and you grew up in the church, you can relate to this, we heard sermons that bashed us, but they really didn't explain it to us. Like, no one set us down and said, I'm going to teach you why this is wrong. They just said, God said Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. And, just these cliches that they said. And I'm like, well, okay, well, if we're going to use Adam and Eve as an example of what human sexuality should be, well, if they were the first two humans, then that means Genesis is full of incest. Are we condoning incest?
They were siblings. Their children were
siblings.
And then, so the world started from, like, incest. Right, this is what I'm saying.
If we're honest. So I don't think this is supposed to be utilized as an ongoing example of human sexuality.
Yeah.
That's wrong. You can't even do it. And a lot of people say, well, I guess I didn't think about that.
Yeah, no, they never do.
They don't. They just bash. They condemn. I've been called all kinds of things. I don't want to say because I don't.
Well, our viewers have heard worse, but we in a respectful place. There we go.
I think all kinds of things. People would literally say just horrible things from the pulpit. I grew up Pentecostal, so they would just. Oh my God, they would bash. They would bash. They would call, lesbians bull daggers. They would call, men sissies and all kinds of things in their sermon. And it would have nothing to do with the sermon.
Right.
But you sat there and you took it because deep down you kind of believe maybe it is a sin and maybe I am supposed to hear this and maybe I do need to. But it isn't until you come into a space of learning to love yourself and learning how to love others that you begin to realize that what you were taught and spoon-fed was poisonous and toxic. And I get the choice to remove the poison and still enjoy Jesus.
Right.
I preached a message, as a matter of fact, 2-3 weeks ago called Who Stole Jesus? And the concept of the message
like, where'd he go?
was, you don't own Jesus Christ or my perception or get to control my relationship with him. You don't own him. Who stole that? You don't get to control how I interpret the love of God. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever, I am whosoever. So you don't get to eliminate me from the equation because you're uncomfortable with who I am. Well, I'm uncomfortable with stuff about you. I think the truth be told, the Bible said you can't wear mixed fabrics. So everybody choir going to hell
when
with
you
this
come in here
polyester
looking a mess, just know that you two are sinning
Right.
when you look a fool.
Right.
We used to call it cross something, where you would wear like Nike shoes but like Adidas socks.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
You can't do that. Now, another thing that I've always thought funny, like I said, I didn't grow up in the church. My family was we're spiritual. I was raised Catholic, technically. I was baptized Catholic. I couldn't tell you the last time I set foot in a Catholic church for a mass or anything like that. But, you know, that's just kind of how it was. Now, going to when I met Martell and we hung out, I went to church with him, saw the pretty much the real, I hate saying black church, but it's the black church. So
I was in church all the time.
okay, but the comment you made
You
about
gotta go to church with me. What did you do on Sunday morning? You have to go to church.
so
I can't miss it.
So the thing is though, and the thing that I've never been able to wrap my mind around was the fact that there are different people in the church. There's the alphabet mafia is all up through the church, especially the black church, all up in the choir stands, directing the choir. So it always just boggled my mind to hear some of the sermons and some of the preachings, but you were ignoring this whole group of people behind you that stereotypically were some of us. So, and I just never I could never get around that.
Because those people, they don't live in their truth.
Well, yeah.
So it's easy to bypass, and they're going to agree with it. They're going to be at the table, at the conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been privy to certain conversations I've heard people say, I've been around it. And then you get older, and then people message you on your inbox at nighttime, hey, what you do? Oh, isn't it, you know?
He's sending hours, don't be messaging me.
I was just having this conversation with one of my worship leaders at one of our locations, and I said, they said, what was the wake-up call for you in the mainstream church that made you say, okay,
no.
I said it was the day somebody did an altar call for homosexuals to come down and get free, and I went down because I wanted to be free, I guess.
Right.
So I went, and they laid hands on me and all the above, and the guy who was running the altar call, casting or trying to cast homosexuality out of me, adds me on MySpace and gets in my MySpace inbox and wants to take me out on a date and starts to hit on me. And just did this altar call for deliverance of homosexuality, and this man was married with 4 kids. See,
and that's the thing that I've talked about. It's like the stuff that some of the stuff that goes on in some churches. One of the things that never got me into, I want to join a church. I love music. So for the most time, anytime that I go into a church setting or go into some, it's because I want to hear the choir, I want to hear the singing, because the music is phenomenal, the songs, everything. But then you start seeing that, you start seeing the dirty looks, and you start hearing the sermons about, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong, you wrong. And I'm like, how does anybody feel welcome in this space? There is no way that God is in this room with all of this hate, negativity up in here. I just could never get with it. I never could.
Right.
I just never could.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the challenge with the body of Christ and the church in general, and I think it's actually a human condition issue, is sometimes we seek strength and identity in demeaning others. And so the lower you are, the more normal and okay I feel.
Right.
And I think the challenge that we have to begin to do, especially, that's the reason why homophobia is so prevalent in the black church. Hurt people. So you have the black community that's hurt and damaged, that now crosses over and is struggling as it pertains to identity, as it pertains to, because the black church is still trying to figure out who it is.
Right.
If we really want to tell the truth, we're trying to figure that out. And so then you have this added element where people who are LGBTQ who have always been here, let's be very clear, 90% of our songs that we sing have been written by LGBTQ plus people. The Gospel Music Workshop of America was founded, I believe, by, what's his name, Cleveland, Reverend James Cleveland, who founded it, and he was a gay man. Everybody knew the man was a gay man. Aretha Franklin's daddy knew the man was a gay man. He was a gay man, and it was just common. Some of the it was rumored. Well, I don't want to say that, but I mean, just some of the Claire Ward singers and all the above. These were homosexuals, lesbians, and but we have become so comfortable with being abused that we begin to make the abuse okay. And so then it became about the more acceptable and unclockable you are. It's a house of Negro mentality. So, if you're in the house, I'm better than the slave in the field. And so we kind of brought that over here. We do that in the LGBTQ community. The more unclockable you are, then the better you are.
Right now.
And so
I tell people, I'll be like, Yeah, like that was my mindset years ago. Like I would be so uncomfortable. Well, I sometimes still. Sometimes still. But I would, because like I was raised by I was raised by my mom, but I lived with my grandma on my father's side for years, and she grew up in the 50s. So she picked cotton down south. It was, being quiet, not, being seen, not being heard, doing this, doing that. So I learned how to maneuver around certain things, certain issues. So I was just like, okay, well, let me go here. Let me not make such a big splash. Let me not say too much. Let me not tell too much of my tea.
Yeah.
Because you want to blend in. Because you got to go to church. That's what they said.
You got to go to
church. I mean, that was my mindset. I mean, my first lady at the time, she had told me years ago, she was like, one day y'all going to stop coming to church. She was like, y'all going to stop coming to church. All y'all going to stop coming to church. I was like, I ain't going to stop coming. She goes, yes, you are. She goes, but if we raised you right, you're going to come back. She was like, the Bible says that a child, you train up a child in the way he should go, he should not depart. She said, don't say you're not going to leave. Right. You'll come back. Right. You have that hope. And I was like, I ain't going to do that. And I did it. She was right. She was right.
Yeah, it's interesting. The church is a complex space. Now, I'm a defender of the church. And the reason I'm a defender of the church, even though I know the church has a lot of baggage and mess and all kinds of things, the church was an instrumental tool that God used to rescue my life. Because, I grew up, I was raised by my grandparents, but before my grandparents got a hold of me, I was in a very abusive environment, okay? So when I was with my mom, and who she was with at the time, my experience was completely different. So I saw my mom, a lot of my mom's cousins and families and friends and kind of how they were living. Then I looked at my grandmother and a lot of her siblings and how they were living. And I noticed one huge difference was their relationship with the church. When you went into my grandmother's house, even to this day, there's a certain peace that is very difficult to explain. There's a calm, there's in her spirit. She just had surgery, major surgery, a couple of days ago. And I spoke to her over the phone, and even after just coming off the operating table in less than 48 hours, just her soul was encouraged, and just she speaks in a way of assurance, and I wanted that. I saw something that she had. My grandmother would wake up every day, probably to this day, I'm sure to this day, at 5 o'clock in the morning. And we're Pentecostal, so you would hear her downstairs speaking in tongues and praying and going, oh, Jesus, oh, and that sound would fill the house. And it would, I can remember there were times we would be struggling with things and down with things, and she would begin to pray and lay hands on us, and the power of God would just come on me and my siblings in the kitchen, and we would just fall to our knees and weep and cry. And so I knew that a lot of the strength that she had was a personal relationship with God, but it also had a lot to do with the church, because my grandmother was very dedicated to the church. She sings. I come from generations of singers and intercessors and prayer warriors. Now my mom left the church. And she left the church because she had a baby out of wedlock, me. and when you back then having a baby out of wedlock was like, oh, shame,
disappear for
silent letter, So yeah, you just disappear, or you sit on what they used to call the pregnant row, way in the back. Just sit in the back of the church. And so that was kind of the culture of what took place. And so because of a lot of judgment, this is the issue. Because of a lot of judgment, she left the church.
Right.
The problem with the church is the church has not mastered a reconciliation, restoration culture.
Right.
So what the church will do is, if I don't agree with you, or if I don't like you, I automatically condemn you and push you away, instead of doing what Jesus Christ said, come now, let's reason together. How can you worship a God and be in a religion that the symbol is a cross, which represents redemption, forgiveness, healing, but then create a space that's based on judgment and critique of your personal opinion? Right. And so that ran my mom away from the church. But the funny thing is, you can leave the church, but a lot of what you were taught will always be a part of it. Always be a part. I remember one time, now my mom has struggled with alcohol addiction, and she has been set free today, but she struggled with alcohol addiction. And so, this one particular time, I would never hear my mom pray or do anything. We were all in the car together. I was about 10 years old, and we're riding down the street, and this is in Atlanta. You know, traffic is horrible there. So 2 trucks were getting ready to almost collide into us. And my mom, who don't pray, don't do anything, opened up her mouth and started speaking in tongues. And she did it in a way where I was like, I forgot about the fact we were about to die. I was like, you know, like, and
you know what it's used for.
Yes, with such intensity. And I mean, like, you would think she was an evangelist or a prophet. But because of, also, I believe in generational anointings.
Yeah.
She inherited that anointing, that gift.
Right.
But that grace on her, it just doesn't leave you. It's a
Right.
part of who you are. And a lot of it has to do with being raised in the church. So there are great benefits. You know, we're in the process of working to prepare for adoption. And as we're preparing for adoption, we understand the power. You know, my husband was born and raised in the church. We know the power of the influence that being raised in the church had in our lives.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is figure how can we remove the toxicity and repair the space, unpack the theological disparities, and make sure that it actually is what it was supposed to be, which is a hospital, a place of healing, a place of restoration. And I believe we're not fully there yet, but we are getting there. We have people in our church, one member in particular, I'll give an example, who was on crack cocaine for 30 years and had smoked crack every day. I mean, just for 30 years. And had a powerful testimony. She was across the street one day from our Indianapolis location and heard the sound of us in there shouting. And she was getting ready to smoke her last crack pipe because she said her heart was just so badly conditioned that if she would have smoked that, she probably would have died. And she said right when she was about to do it, she heard a voice say, enough. And she could hear the sound of the music. So she walked across the street, walked into the church, literally collapsed on her knees, crawled down to the altar, and God set her free from crack addiction. She never touched crack again. This has been 6, maybe 7 years.
Wow.
And she's now a licensed evangelist, licensed missionary in the church.
Yeah.
And so it's about creating a space of healing where you don't feel condemned no matter where you are in life. And I think the tool of the church is very powerful. We have to know how to use it, because if you don't know how to use it, you'll abuse it.
Right.
You definitely have to separate the people from the church. Because I remember it was about 10 years ago, I had went through an issue at the church, and I was mad. I was so mad. I was mad at God. I was mad at the people. I was mad at the church. I just stopped going to church. I was like, I'm done. I wouldn't hurt nobody but myself, because I should have went somewhere else. Because I felt like the church, they just did something, and I kept saying I was mad at God about this whole situation. I was mad at the church and everybody, and then slowly but surely, God was like, "Come on now." You know, I worked my relationship back with Him. I was able to forgive those people, but then I was never able to feel comfortable in that space anymore, because I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't worship with y'all, and I'm looking at y'all sideways. And that's been what, 10 years? It's been about 10 years now, and relationships are still mending, because, you know, we stay in the same town. You see people, you know, you can't be rude all the time. I used to be very rude. I would see them, and I would keep on going, pushing my cart into Walmart. My mom would be like, "Don't do that, girl." And she's the one telling me not to do it, but she was doing it first.
Right.
You know, but, you know, I had to really let go.
Right.
I had to really let go of all that. And I was like, okay, what's next? And I was at the crossroad for a while, because I'm like, okay, how do I utilize my gifts to do all this stuff and still be able to be myself?
Right.
And, you know, it took some time.
Yeah.
It took some time. I know I had to learn some words, you know, affirming.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, so there's a space for me. I was like, because I didn't think there was.
Right.
I was like, okay, so you go back to church and you have to cover up some parts of your aspects of your life. Or you sit there and you just have people look at you crazy. Like, I really went through a mental thing with that for a while. And I was like, what am I going to do? And yeah, it was that was something.
You said something so powerful. You had to separate church from people.
Yeah, I had to.
And I had to realize that, like, there was a phrase that was going on, a catchphrase. It was church hurt. So everybody's like, church hurt. We all have church hurt. And then I started to realize, I said, well, the church didn't hurt me. People in the church hurt me.
Right.
But I've been hurt by people in every human institution. I done had co-workers hurt me. most of my hurt came from school and home. Like most of I was picked on in school and talked about, more in that institution than I ever was in the church. And yet, here I am, in grad school pursuing another degree, and I haven't given up on that institution. We're still working careers and jobs, even though in our last job we had problems. We went and found another job.
Right.
But it's, we experienced hurt in the church. It's like, well, do away with the whole thing. It's done, the whole thing. And it's like, well, no, there are some positive aspects. If it wasn't for the church, there would be no civil rights movement.
Right.
Because all of our civil rights leaders came out of the church, and all of their meetings were held in churches. And the reason why that was because the black church was the only institution that we had full control over without governmental interference.
Yeah.
And so it was all of our the bus boycotts, the plans for our marches were held. These were, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Coretta Scott King, these were pastors and missionaries and evangelists that utilized the church for that purpose. What if we recalibrate the church? Maybe she's just lost her way.
Right.
Recalibrate the institution and realize if we do this right, this can be a benefit that can liberate people. If the church didn't exist, then the particular member I just named would either still be prostituting it on crack instead of getting herself a new house and getting herself deeper into her career and helping to manage our foster home. She would either be dead or still out there in the street if it was not for the institution of the church.
Right.
Now, she went to hospitals, she went to rehab, she went to all kinds of places, but without the power of that church family, she did go back into a rehab program.
Yeah.
But the power of that church family to rescue her out, because this is the thing, we're not going to effectively deal with homophobia unless we deal with spirituality, period. Because where does homophobia come from? What makes people feel like they have the right to judge? It is because of religion, what people have been taught. If we really are honest, it's at the core of it. And so do you do away with it or recognize that there is an internal need in us to connect to our Creator?
Right.
Or do we revamp the ways in which we do it and say, okay, now let's create a space of healing and restoration that's about building you up, restoring people. And I think once we begin to do that, what we're doing right now in this church, people may not understand it right now, but 20 years from now, generations will look back and appreciate and say, you know what, this was the beginning of something that was a makeover, a remodeling, a revitalization for Christianity in the church. Because let's be honest, the evangelical mainstream culture is failing. And they started failing the moment they jumped behind Trump. And the moment they started prophesying, God said Trump gonna be the next. Well, he's not, so you lied. You lied on God.
Right.
Well, what else have you lied concerning God about?
Right.
So maybe about me. You lied, and His love for me. You lied. So you lied. You have all of these mainstream preachers out there who they've been uncovered that you condemn homosexuals, but yet you support this man who advocates sexually abusing women and cheating on his wife and talk of denigrating immigrants and all kinds of. You rally behind that, understanding that you worship a savior who was an immigrant, who had to leave his hometown because of murders that were taking place in a colonized part of the Mediterranean. How can you, a Jesus who was reared in Africa and was reared around Arabic culture, if we're very honest, that probably would look like somebody you'd be scared, some of these folks would be scared to sit next to on a plane.
Exactly.
If they're honest. And you worship a Christ. And so I think that what we have to do is reclaim Christ. Christ doesn't just belong to you or belong to me, He belongs to all of us. And there is, if we're made in the image of God, we are all a reflection of that image.
Right.
And we have to get back to that culture.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. And it'll take, like you said, it'll take somebody starting these talks, starting the changes in churches to kind of say, okay, look, we got to fix something. Something's not going right. We got, and I think that's the part that a lot of people don't even want to recognize is, oh no, it's fine. We've been doing this like this for so long, and it's not working. It's not working. But I'm glad that there are people like you building places like this to kind of challenge that and to kind of get people with the same mindset as myself out of that mindset of church bad, you know, all that fun stuff. I think it's a very good thing, and I will have to make one of the services soon in the COVID world. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it. Lord, just get us through this, okay?
I'm ready
Please
for it to
and
be
thank
over.
I am
For
Y'all
real.
ready to get vaccinated?
You know what? Yes. And a lot of people are going, oh, I don't know, and they rushed it, and
I had the
that's the
COVID
least. That's
already.
like
I
right.
don't
That's
know.
like the less of two evils right now. This vaccine, okay?
I mean,
We
I
got to
had it
deal with it.
already. I'm like, whatever. Let's go. Let's get it over with.
Mhm.
Get the shot. Keep it moving.
I want the Trump administration to go ahead and get the shot. They said they're going to do it first.
I want them to go first. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want them to go first.
Yeah, they might
And then
as well.
after they go first.
I'm
See
gonna go
what
third.
happens.
I'm going like the
We'll
third
see
or fourth
what
batch. I don't want the,
Right,
I don't want the first couple batches.
Right,
Y'all
go
give me
ahead.
a few more batches.
Put me in the fifth batch.
Y'all
Yes. Y'all go for it, and
Let them
we'll,
go.
we'll see what the Lord
And I
says.
was like, you know, as soon as they get theirs, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna get my little vaccination after.
Right.
that. But I mean, I was like, I had it. I was like, they told me I couldn't get it. Now they telling me on the news I could get it again. I'm like,
They
It's
don't
just hard to
know.
what
That's
to-
the thing. Yeah.
they don't. It changes every
They
day.
don't know.
I mean, the first couple of days, I didn't know I had it. I was out hanging out, and then I was like, I can't taste nothing. He goes, oh wow. I'm like, I can't tell you. I can't even smell. Well, let's go to the party.
There you go. There you go. Lord
That was
have
just out
mercy.
there. I could have. I'm so glad I didn't get nobody sick.
Right,
I kept
right.
it to myself. I was very stingy with COVID.
Very selfish.
very, very selfish. And not sure.
Yes.
So how can the people out there connect with you guys with the movement?
Absolutely.
I'll start calling it the movement.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really that's what we say here.
Yeah.
We say it's not just a church, it's a movement, you know. You can look us up at phglobalnetwork.org.
Okay.
phglobalnetwork.org. Subscribe to get connected to all of our events, find out more about our classes, more about what we offer to empower you right there while you're quarantining.
Yeah.
We have tons of resources to keep you empowered throughout the entire week. You can also look me up on Instagram, Bishop Keith McQueen.
That's how I found him, y'all.
Yeah, I'm there on Instagram, Bishop Keith McQueen. You can look me up on Facebook. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on any place you can be. You
There
will
we
find
go.
Powerhouse Church. And so just look us up, Powerhouse Church Global, and we would love to connect with you and get you plugged in.
Perfect. We got to make sure we post all of that on the page.
Yes.
So everybody can, all of our 3 followers can check
Oh,
it out. All of our 3 followers, you know, we don't got many.
Well,
That one, you know,
it's
just
one.
one, just one.
Many
inside
to
joke.
come.
Oh, we brought a gift
Yes.
to thank you for being. Oh, it's right there. To thank you for appearing on our little,
Thank you.
our little Pauldry
And I made that.
podcast here.
Oh, glory. Oh,
That
glory.
is handmade.
I can eat it.
No, you can't.
I cannot eat it.
It's a plaque. Open it up.
Oh, plaque.
Open it
Okay,
up.
yes.
Open it up. Open it up.
Okay.
I would have baked, but you know, I have to wait for Christmas so I can get my new blender. My
Oh,
new mixer I got coming
yeah.
in. I ain't supposed to know about it, but I check Amazon.
Isn't it wonderful when Amazon show
It's
up?
showing everything. It's been here since before my birthday.
It's
Just waiting.
been here.
Yes,
I haven't seen it yet either, so I'm very
Oh,
curious.
wow.
It's the same one I picked out.
You made this?
Yeah.
This is nice. Look at you gifted.
I'm like Martha Stewart, you know.
Come on.
This
Ain't this nice? And he
A little
made this.
token.
This is so nice.
a little token to thank you for appearing on our
Wow.
show. We greatly appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you.
And I know I will be back probably
Of
before him
course.
Yeah.
because I do want to get more active in church, and I know I'm coming back. I'm trying to bring my cousin back with me. We got to keep him prayed up.
Yeah.
We're going through a lot right now.
Yeah.
Y'all heard that? Get him plugged in.
Yes.
Y'all heard
Absolutely.
No,
that?
like you can plug me in. I'm trying to bring my cousin back with me too because he needs it. Ooh, he needs it.
Yeah.
He'll talk about me.
Right.
It's okay because he needs it.
Thank everybody for watching. This will be airing Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Coming up.
Yes.
Tomorrow will be Christmas Eve,
Yep.
and then the day after that be Christmas Day. So happy holidays to the families and everyone, and keep sipping and keep tripping. And it might just have a little wine, just a little red wine. It's blood, right? Just a little red wine. That's okay.
You ain't
There
supposed
we
to-
go.
Yeah.
We will see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye bye. All right.
But yes, I made that.